I think this is as many as we get, and thank you everyone for coming. So this is our yearly committee pilot meeting, and this is an odd year, so we are selecting a new committee, what is the most important part of it. And before we do that, we'll have a presentation from Alistair about the committee's new role going forward and what is expected from us. So I think you do it.
Thanks, Matt. I had like a whole presentation or anything. I'm going to speak for a long time. I'd really like to give you guys an opportunity to ask questions of me as someone that's on the SAPA board and kind of what's going on. So firstly, there's a few things that have happened on the SAPA board over the last year. You might be aware that the ops manager moved on. We've got a new structure in place with our full-time staff. So we've got a general manager now, or chief executives that's running the place. In a way where the budget's being managed and a whole bunch of things that are appropriate for running a company. And we are still in the process of recruiting a full-time operations and training manager who will perform a whole bunch of different roles. At the same time, over the last year, we have got a SAPA strategic plan in place, and we're trying to use that to help guide the decision making. Part of that is a section on competitions, which talks about reinvigorating competition formats and boosting participation in competitions. Essentially, it's giving the competitions committee and the pilot community the opportunity to grab any of those things that are in the strategic plan, and so that's an initiative we want to get after. So that's one thing that's happening with competitions. The second thing that's happening with competitions is that we've got terms of reference in place now for the competitions committee. It is one of the kind of formal subcommittees, if you like, of the SAPA board. We've only really got two formal subcommittees from the SAPA board: the operations and training committee, which sets the operations manual and provides a whole bunch of guidance like that, and then the competitions committee. Comms committee's got two paragliding members, two hang gliding members, president, and I think the new operations and training manager will be a member of it as well.
Is it the Weight Microlife guy?
I think so. I can't recall. In any case, in terms of reference, the board agreed to it. It's in place. The second thing that matters, I think, is that we've put in place a set amount of funding for competition support on an annual basis, but it can be averaged over a 2-year basis. So it's 20k a year. Effectively, we've given it to the competitions committee and said, you work out what you want to do with 20,000 a year to support any of the things that you've done in the past or any of the things in the plan, and manage SAPA expenditure in support of competitions against that. So everything from supporting pilots going overseas to the world, to entry fees, supporting domestic competitions if there's any call to do any of that, FAI fees. There's a whole range of things that we've spent money on in the past. That 20,000 a year on average is much more than the average over the last 10 years that we've spent, and it's but it's not as much as the maximum that we spent a couple of years ago. Paid for a whole bunch of travels.
20,000 for hang gliders, 20,000 for paragliders, and 10,000 over the globe.
20,000 across the globe, and the comms committee works out what to allocate it to. We're not trying to get, we don't want to get the board involved in the detail. Do we support this particular thing? And if there's if someone comes and says, hey, I'm going to the international competition, I'd like some support, please. We don't consider that board. It's in the comms committee, and so we work out whether or not it can fit within the SAPA support competitions budget. In the future, that could increase if SAPA revenue increases. But at the moment, our revenue is going down and our expenses are going up. Our insurance bill went from sort of 350 to 450 over just the last year. 350,000 in one, so 450,000, so increased by 100,000 in 1 year. And we didn't get any more pilots to pay for that increased insurance. So that's a challenge. We can deal with that for a few years because we've got a bit of a buffer, but we don't have like a whole whack of money to support stuff. And every bit of money that we spend on something, every $300 that we spend on something is one pilot's annual membership fees. We're always sort of remembering that on the board. If we decide to spend $5 grand on something, or say $3 grand on something, that's 10 pilots. Choose their entire fee. So we always remember that sort of stuff.
Is there still facility to go to SAPA for special things? So, for instance, I'm going to propose that we actually get 25 VHF radios to cover the potential 25 overseas pilots that come to a competition, so that we can get rid of the whole requirement of not carrying VHF, which gets us around the biggest part of the problem with TDA. So but there's probably $6 grand. I mean, that's a big lump out of.
That would only suit the Bright.
Sorry,
that would only suit the Bright. So we have to get a VHF endorsement for the.
No, we don't. But you won't have to. No, we will have the facility to give the incoming pilots the chance to get their endorsement, and we'll have a radio to loan them. That means we don't have to get these.
So without speaking about a particular thing,
Yeah.
of course, you can always ask the board for something, but if it's something that's like really competition focused, we'll probably go to the comps committee and say this is fit within the comps budget. How could this fit within the comps budget? And if the answer is it sort of doesn't, then we reconsider. Doing the SAFA board thing is quite a lot more work for the comps committee. It's quietly. It's probably about half a day a week of work for me. Like that's the full-time equivalent. At least, at the very least, a 2-hour meeting every fortnight, and often a whole lot more. But of course, it's fun.
It's about glory.
There is an opportunity to try and make shit better, right? There's a lot of dumb things that we're trying to get rid of. There's been a lot of things creeping over the last sort of 5 years that I think have really annoyed riders. So we're going to try and line back into that. Okay, so there's the money thing, we've got the competitions, the admin in place. The strategic plan lists a whole bunch of different things that, some of which are a good idea, like the kind of thing that Ian wants to chat about later, which is having broader competition formats and particularly like the E&C type competitions. That sort of thing is absolutely supported by the strategic plan. The opportunity to do that is essentially given to the community. There's other stuff in the strategic plan which is a bit sort of wacky, like trying to get paragliding and hang gliding as an Olympic sport. But anyway, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's in there. I didn't like this part of the plan. Somebody else on the board put this part together. But he's kind of got a good vision. So anyway, you've got a lot of freedom if you're in the comms community to help you move forward. And you'll get support from the board if you put sort of time in and say, hey, this is what we want to do. We're trying to make it better. Did I sell it?
So as far as discussing some of these issues and the strategic plan, so this is on the SAFA website.
Yeah, in fact, if you just Google SAFA strategic plan, you'll find it. Go to but it's in the documents area.
The documents, because that's half the thing is trying to find all these bits through the.
Yeah, so if you're trying to find something on the SAFA website, go to the documents area, go expand all, and then just search in the browser for whatever the keyword is, and you'll find it.
Should pop up, yeah. Because the other thing is the forums and where people are discussing various things.
Yeah, so that's another change that we've had over the last year. A bunch of you might know that, like, Godfrey had this SAFA unofficial forum thing. Did you have any anyone kind of moderating that? You didn't actually have to be a SAFA member to post on there, and a bunch of ex-SAFA members who just have sheets of this just used to post stuff on there. Some of which was sort of liable. Anyway, so we set up an official files policy on Facebook, which is, Facebook doesn't cover everyone, but it's sort of good enough for most people.
I want to compliment your comments on it. You run a really good role in that.
Yeah, so we try and post about that, get people informed through there. It's kind of hard, right? I mean, not all of us have got a lot of time to do something. Anyway, yeah, so that's a channel that the content community can use to engage with the broader part of the community, not just the competition community as well.
Because I think last year we re-established a competitions kind of group, didn't we? Yeah.
That's still, yeah. But that's for competition committee, I think. Not
Yeah,
specific.
just for issues to come up on competitions that we can discuss there.
Yeah.
Like the proposal of who's interested in this type of competition, and maybe publishing a calendar of events too, so people know you've got Wings Out West, you've got all sorts of other competitions as well, State of Origin, to see where what dates in these extra competitions fit in the schedule.
I think we would all welcome a longer term calendar of events for competitions. So something that extended over 2 years, maybe, or even 3 years. Certainly 2 years out, so we could see when's Bright, when's Corion, when's Canberra. I know some of those state level competitions. I think that's something we'll welcome, and it'll be a great thing for the competitions community to get their head around. This is an initial thing. I don't know if that'll help you guys. Or if you guys long term is like difficult.
But that's what we would like, and that's what we're asking for all the time. It would be nice to do 2 years in advance if it was possible. But still, the paragliding community is so much better than anyway, because at least they ask to sanction 6 months in advance and not just 2 months. So we're not doing too bad.
Something the hang gliders have done, but I'm not sure if you've done it, but they've set up a company to run the hang gliding competition that they're throwing. So, they've got an ABN and the whole thing, and they're running it as an entity that's now an affiliated entity with SAFA. You don't have to be to be affiliated with SAFA as an entity. You can be a state association, or you can be a club. It's got some kind of official thing. And the hang gliders set up an official, like a legal entity, so they can become an affiliated organisation with SAFA. Have extend insurance to people on their board that weren't pilots.
The squad has as well, the name in. So,
Yeah. Are they affiliated?
probably not, but we could be, obviously, if that's the case.
Yeah, you could be. Yeah. So anything that's an official entity that's sort of got interests that are aligned with SAFA can be an affiliated entity. And that'll extend the SAFA insurance policies to the board or whatever the directors are of that entity.
Would that increase the policy?
No. So the number of entities that we extend our directors and office holders insurance to doesn't screw that up. And the aviation liability insurance is different. It's just the pilots.
And so I think they're starting a club, the Corion. Is that just approach the board or something like that, or who's the?
So if you were starting a club, what that means is, you probably want to be an incorporated association.
Yeah, that's
so once you've done all that sort of stuff, then for most clubs, they go via the state association, who then says, yeah, you can be, we'll support you as an affiliated entity. The main benefit you get is like appointing SSOs and getting the directors and office holders insurance for the executives.
So you recommend going to the state rather than directly to?
Yeah, well, so for clubs that are flying clubs, they're always supported by the state association.
Yeah.
Or nominated by the state association.
Go to New South Wales and they'll pay for all this stuff.
Yeah. New South Wales puts more money in it, so I think
Is that measured? Because I was thinking.
There's no, there's
No,
no actual law.
Just call it a communicated.
Well, I was thinking up above.
Yeah, the toe on one.
Seriously, if you're going to get money, it won't be from Victoria.
What do you mean?
No, they just
You
don't.
can also do it basically.
That's true.
Australian Canberra.
Well, I mean, all the ACT sites are in New South Wales.
The Corrion site used to be managed from Newcastle.
Well, it's managed from the HG Comps at the moment. Which
We
bit
just
like having an absentee election.
started off as West, it used to be Newcastle, then it became the West Victorian Hang Gliding Club, and now they are the HG Comps, something like that.
Which are 4 people in Western Australia.
Yeah, so it makes sense. It makes sense to do it.
I think so.
Any other questions?
That's what I was saying.
Snapper, crap.
Being the main one, things that-
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Alistair.
Thank you. Before we go to the election of the new delegates, is there any question regarding the committee you guys would like to ask? We pretty much know what it is about.
Can I just say a couple of words? I mean, you can
Yes.
do it, but we need somebody who's willing to communicate with the stakeholders, particularly if it's changing rules. You've got to consult with the guys who are impacted by the rules changes, and it's not just you're not in the bubble. Like you're representing the other comp pilots. So number one, you need to be able to communicate effectively with other pilots. Two, you really do need a good understanding of the rules because every small change has an impact some years down the line that you don't understand. And if you make a mistake and there are weird little things like I was discussing with Phil the other day, it has an impact, a big impact, and it doesn't come until it's contested and people have already picked sides because they're on one side or the other. You need to be able to see something in the future what your rule changes will do and try to make a decision before it becomes a crunch, right? And you know, we want a community that works together, not divided. So if you're just consulting your guys around you, the 4 guys you know, and not the guys down in Victoria or the guys up in Queensland, then the whole comps becomes, fragile and strained. And it makes for a bad environment for people on the comps committee and the top competitors as well. Like it impacts, I'm pretty sure Tim's impacted by some of the stuff that's going on, which is why it's like the whole comps not so keen at the moment, right? So, but if you do the right thing, you consult, and everyone 60% of this way, that way, then everyone's pretty happy, in my experience, right? But if you don't, you just try to push something through, or you just put in, that won't have any change, that won't have any impact. It does have an impact, and everybody is upset.
So it's about change management, right?
Yeah, it's change management, consultation, understanding the rules, like a good understanding of the rules. And you've got to work with the board too, right? So when there are conflicts, it's just about resolution of those conflicts in a way that doesn't generate more conflict. And maybe Max will say something as well, since he's spent 2 years on the conflict end of things.
No, really. I think you must sum it up. You need to, when you have this role, you need to represent all pilots. So not the top 5, but there's 200 pilots interested you need to look after, and you need to follow the guidelines that you got from the board, the mission statement on what they want to achieve in the long run. And hopefully it all lines up, but sometimes there might be a decision that's not pleases everyone. But then you have to deal with that as it comes up.
Yeah, I think that our processes could be refined as part of going forward. Like some things just aren't well defined, and so we don't do the same thing every time. And so people are like, "Oh, why did we do it this way this time and differently last time?" Even the whole physical meeting is a little bit not inclusive, just how it was in the past.
So we discussed at the last Parliament meeting about having a change policy and a consultation policy for changes. We haven't gotten there yet, so.
No, there is actually no, as I discovered when I got onto the committee, there is no really any guidelines or rules for the processes at all. Just takes us to come. So now that really need to we put in place, and one of the very first things to do is to establish a process to follow, so we know that when decisions are made, they will stick, and that they are happy for a board and they're happy for a pilot. And when we follow this process, otherwise we're wasting our job, basically.
What's some ideas how we can communicate that? What sort of
Well,
communication?
so last time we suggested that if you're proposing a change, you needed to go to everybody who's competed in the last 2 years as stakeholders, and the email lists are in the comps. It can be
In a AAA competition or any Australian competition?
we can do any. I mean, it doesn't really. Inclusiveness is not bad, but we just don't have a process. So I guess the first step is to go, how about this process as a process, and then go, okay, let's use this process to do more changes, right?
Yes, there's no reason we can't change the process and go forward, right? There's no process.
So
But
that part-
previous to this competition committee, last 2 years, was there a process?
No, there's never really.
It's always best effort, right?
It's all built in the time before the internet, right? The whole thing, the whole manual, everything is built in the time before the internet.
So at the moment, it's created this situation where we actually do need that communication.
Yeah, we need to establish a process that the company is to follow when we make a
To
decision.
make your job easier.
Yes. And make it meaningful.
I think as something arises, clearly identifying who the stakeholders are needs to be a high priority thing, because different things affect different pilots in the group. And there's things which are only going to affect the top, 10 at that particular time, and then you can expand and say, but it's going to affect the potentially 30 or 40 that it might affect in the next 5 to 10 years to make changes. And so to include a full 200 in a voting right or voting on an issue, when the majority of them are A, never going to be impacted by it, or B, have absolutely no interest in it.
But you
And
can't
it just creates co-opting and sort of.
You can't pick people that have got no interest, because today they may not, tomorrow they're going, oh, I want a big 30. So you have to open to everybody, otherwise you become exclusive.
Could I suggest that we put a register for interested parties, so people who compete in comps are then able or invited to register their interest if they want to. If they're not interested, they don't have to.
Anyway, I don't think we need to solve it now, right? Let's go to the next committee.
But we have a list of all competing pilots because it's all of a national level. And they are all upcoming pilots. It's impossible to know now who's going to be the next champion in 5 or 10 years' time. They are in that list somewhere. He's the next champion. He does not know who it is.
So you do it all via email to that list, and then if
We have a group that we.
people don't respond by a certain time, that's like tacit acceptance, and you can take that as we move forward.
But getting on that list is a problem. It's not easy either, You get these odd Google Groups emails that sort of, propagate. But you could register on the SAPA website saying I'm interested in the comps committee or in comps events and discussion. So you're then on the list and then receiving updates with the SAPA headline saying this is the comps committee of the SAPA. So it's all transparent. You know who's who. Just makes it clearer and less opaque and easier to manage and follow.
Good job at the next comps committee.
Indeed so.
I know who we're nominating.
Very hard to start.
Should we look at the people that are nominated? We got 6 names first. Tim Marshall has declined, and Jane Benowitz I can't get hold of, so we can't really vote for him. But we have Phil, who we all know. We have Jane Brewer. And we have Canon Birch.
Conan.
Sorry. And Zane. So are you 4 guys, are you all interested?
I'm declining the.
You declining?
I'm nominating Gareth.
You get?
No, I don't think the guys at the top should do this job. They should do it when they retire. I've already done it for 5 years too.
I
So-
did speak to Jan Benowitz in the last 2 weeks, and he would leave his name in as a nominator.
He would.
Yeah.
So we can vote for you.
Yeah, I haven't spoken to him in the last days, knowing that he's been nominated, but.
He's always said,
Yeah,
Yeah, so, and I just say, if you don't know siteguide.org.au, our site guide, that's Jan's work. All Jan's work from scratch, so he can, and he comes to a lot of calls to these guys.
He's not even, he's in hospital at the moment.
Yes.
I'm serious.
So everyone on the list has accepted nomination?
Yes. Plans with John as well, even though I haven't talked to him, but one of 3 hands, we have 4. Do we have anyone else who would like to nominate?
I'm leaning away from it unless someone really wants me there. Yeah.
I'm just going to say, James, you look around the age of this room, most of these dudes will not be competing in 20 years. You might be. And it matters, the rules changes now matter to you in the future.
Yeah.
And you have a good understanding of the rules, you have a good understanding of the people. I'm just saying. You look like that, Tony. It's not, you need to be on a committee and if you care about the rules in the future, you need to be on a committee at a time where it makes a difference to you in 10 years. Yeah? Like, there's no point going to any where I'm going to make changes, I think it should be like this. So what? Yeah.
What's the word like committee? What is the actual committee?
How many hours per year?
Oh, he said that there. Maybe over here it could be 40 hours.
40 hours in a whole year.
How often are the meetings?
Every second month. Sometime every month, there's lots of
2
things
hour
happening.
one meeting every 2 months.
So you don't need to be on the committee to suggest change, right? You can be just very polite and say, oh, I've got an idea of changing the scoring system to be X, Y, Z for these reasons, and then everyone will discuss it and it's a good idea. You don't have to be on the committee to take the pressure off him. I'm just saying, he's talking about his commitment level at the moment, he might be busy with other things, it could be a bit of a stretch to be as productive as you'd like to be on a committee at this point in time.
Since we have no process, we can always select 2 people and ask the 3rd person to be an alternate or a backup for the guys. Because we have no process currently.
I'm happy to stay back as a backup outside the comp committee if they need some advice or some help or something. I'm happy to do that part.
With those current nominations, that's no one from the current committee staying. Who is the current committee and
Yes,
is
myself.
anyone staying on?
It's 2 paragliding pilots and it's 2 hang gliding, and there was me and Adam.
Yeah.
Adam stopped and he's not here, he stopped competing.
I used to be on the comps committee for 5-7 years or something, and then been organising the comps, 2/3 of the Aussie comps, so I've always been kept on as a bit of a sub-member. Guess that would probably stay as well.
Who are the hang gliding members?
I don't sit on most of the meetings.
Harrison?
Harrison
I sit as a quiet
Steve,
member in the background.
something, I think his name. No, Steve, something. Yeah. But he's had Steve as up to meetings.
The comms committee comprises of two paragliding reps, 2 hang gliding reps, and a civil rep, and sometimes somebody from SAFA as well. The hang gliding reps, I think, are changing as well this year.
Next year.
Next year.
Yeah. But if you, there's some long-term comps committee members, so Dave, Jeff, I've done it for quite a few years. So you can ask people for their ongoing IP to walking out with these guys, with a fresh committee.
Don't have to know the comms manual off by heart.
Just helps.
But
I need to have it there to refer to.
But you will by then.
Alright, so who we got nominated against? So James.
We have
Is
Phil
James still
Manson,
happy?
Phil Manson, James,
Yeah.
Conan.
That didn't sound like
Yeah. John.
Can each person that's nominated have a little talk and introduce what their thoughts are?
That would be great.
Can I say that I'm not going for it, for the position, for the reasons that Jeff's mentioned. And yeah, I don't know how much longer I'm going to be popping up this year, maybe 2 years maximum. And
it's only a 2-year position anyway.
But I feel a responsibility to leave my nomination in because I have been proactive in trying to force some change in this region. I think it would be irresponsible and not fair of me not to put up.
You should, and you're going to Brazil, aren't you?
So yeah, that's where I stand. I'm not a really good committee person.
That's a really possible.
I have been self-employed all my life, and I make my decisions like them, so it's just I've never dealt with it.
Clearly not in sales.
No.
That's not important.
All right, who's next?
James?
I don't know what I can offer, but I guess I'd be keen to sit in maybe a background role and keep in touch with it, I guess, and maybe I can add value down the track, but I don't see what much. Yeah.
I think you're underestimating yourself right now.
It's one of those positions where I'm totally in favour of anyone who doesn't want to do it.
Yeah, get my finger in a lot of pies and yeah, I guess.
Did we mention it doesn't pay money? 50,000 a year. Nigerian dollars.
Okay. Coleman?
Similar to James, I don't really have any understanding of comps manual or even many of the rules of comps. I just don't like.
Here's your chance to learn.
Yeah, I guess.
You don't have to know what the rules are. The rules are written down in a book. So when something comes up, it's something to refer to.
So you've got very experienced people who are sitting there by your side to help out too. So it's a good opportunity to learn all that without being just thrown into the fire.
Yep, that's me.
I want to say something about
Jan Benowitz, we held a pilot meeting last year, in Corio? And it looked like Adam was stepping down from comps, so we needed to replace Adam. So at that meeting, Jan was actually elected. And then we found that Adam wasn't actually going to step down until the end of this. So Jan never really actually got onto the comps committee, but he was very much welcomed at the time. He's, as Jeff has stated, he's got the site guide thing, he's very bright bloke, very active in comps, etc. And would be a great member.
And he communicates, because of the site guide, he communicates with people all over the country.
He's very proactive.
With his personal situation at the moment, is he happy to take on the role? I don't actually know what's happening with Jan, but he's just got on.
Cerebral spinal fluid leak for the last years. I don't know where it's coming from. And it's quite debilitating. Gets headaches regularly. So it's not an amazing thing. But
So would this job take his mind off?
But I mean, if we can go with the yarn, perhaps James as a backup to that or something like that.
So then it would James the job. With Phil as a backup.
Have I got back up?
Yep.
Can we swap Phil? How close was it between Phil and
Doesn't matter.
one vote? I can change his vote.
it's not a popularity. You should have voted for yourself, James.
Recount, I think.
You were happy to take it?
Yeah, somewhat. I don't think I have. I think Phil adds a lot more value. He understands it.
No, but James, I'm more than happy to sort of be working very closely with you. More than that, because look,
But I think in terms of like the actual official role, I think that it's more suited towards you.
It's much more complex when you're talking about the top guys in the top 10 because it becomes a matter of self. And you're not there, so you're in a better position.
Not yet, not yet.
When you get there, you can go on. So I'm focused on the racing. That's fine. Just get the process in place. Get the information focused.
Put it on your CV.
Okay, that's good, we've done that.
Organise the process, young process, multiply process.
Then we all have is, do we have any other business that we'd like to bring to the committee?
Just moving on to just one more thing that I just wanted to ask, just out of interest, just on the subject of our two comps that we have, which is mainly Bright and Coriol, and the subject of back-to-back or not to back-to-back. And a little bit of history here is that many years ago we did actually have a pilot meeting and we did the same sort of asked the question of what people prefer. And at that time it came in at 50-50. Brian was running the Bright comp at the time, and so we felt that we would alternate it was the best way because it was 50-50. So I'd just like to ask the question again and get a vote, or not a vote, a show of hands of what people prefer, just to get an idea of what people want. It's not that easy because there's only a quarter of the comp sitting in here at the moment.
I was actually going to suggest that you and I have a chat and actually send a mail out to everybody in the comps, because when we talked about it before, the problem is if you ask everybody up front, everyone sits on the fence anyway. The good news about having done it, experienced it now, because I know when I was working, the getting 2 weeks off in one lump was really hard, so I liked it split, but I was only in Sydney. I know people from Queensland, did spend very good. So I think
that's the main idea.
Yeah, I think we should do a mail out to everybody and get a proper answer rather.
I would suggest actually that you use the pilot list for this because we've got more people on it this year.
Or the combined pilot.
Oh, the combined, yeah. So for both comps. Yeah.
We'll maybe send that.
And then we're actually really targeting the exact figures we want to talk about.
I mean, it's interesting because I reckon last year, before the comp, we must have had 40 comp pilots on the hill every day. Yeah. We could have had a second comp.
Well, we could have run a mini alternate class different to race style. We could have run an alternative style for a couple of days.
Well, this could depend as well. There's talk of potentially with a New Zealand comp going back to back, isn't there? On Coriol? No, talking about the Kiwis to do.
They
last year, yeah, and that kind of government, but we did a lot more.
the New Zealand have seen a kind of lacking organisers and enthusiasm to do anything. This is no one really pushing it. That's their problem.
There's a business opportunity for you. You all know that.
I am considering running a sports class comp in Coriol next year.
I think that would be popular.
So would you run that?
With the SRS?
Maybe as a triple back-to-back. Because the trouble is with Coriol is that, and kind of Bright as well, it particularly shows itself in Coriol is it's limited on time. Because once you start getting to late February, it starts shutting down at 4 o'clock and it's quite hard to get goal and that sort of thing. It starts getting a little bit of autonomy. Summer, January, we've learned that really it's not an ideal time just for safety, it gets too hot. We're talking of Menina coming back next year, so it will be a hot summer next year. So January, it's not fun hanging in the tree at 40 degrees. Not safe.
And then you've got other events that the town might be hosting that if people get to do like Manila and country music, when they try to organise an event in that time period, see they booked out. Yeah, all sorts of issues. So, yeah, there's no written Coriol that's a factor.
That's a bit later, though. The other bit we did this year too as well, don't forget we extended it out to the 8-day comps as well, which used to be held before. So part of the question will be on whether that's difficult to tell now because
well, it hasn't been very official this year. So.
Sorry? No.
Would now be a good time to talk about the sports class comp?
we should talk about it.
Well, I've heard a couple of serial class and above pilots mention to me that they're actually thinking of stepping down to a C-class fighter and going to a couple of those comps in Europe. And so that showed me that there's interest from the top pilots. And you know how Coriolis was difficult for anyone to get into unless they were already in the comp scene. And so there's a lot of people out there who can't get to a good comp. So a sports class comp could cater to both the top pilots flying a more equal wing and a lot of pilots who want to come to a competition. So I actually see that it may fit into that SAFA, their tick the boxes of trying to encourage participation, that it may be actually worth putting more money or something towards it to actually encourage it to actually happen.
So to get the SRS or the Nova Grand Prix to come here as their officials or running their own separate?
Well, no, what normally would happen is they might run an example competition and try it out, rather than actually saying we want to join their series.
Yeah, because they've said they would want to out here to make it worthwhile because their pilots would come.
And so one of the questions with the people here, I'd like to ask you, by a show of hands, if you're currently flying a serial class glider or above, would you be interested in flying in a sports class comp?
In absence of the two AAAs, no, but as a separate event.
Yeah, as a separate event, yeah. And I would really.
That's a deal, it shouldn't be.
So there's some we've had some discussion about running ABC Comp and Dave as well. So the question is, who's going to organise it?
Great, that's right.
Yeah. So
It's the same for all comps, but somebody's going to step up.
So just from where I'm coming from is what we've done in the past with AAAs is that we've also tried to mentor pilots because it's really important to nurture new pilots coming into the sport and develop pilots all the way coming up, which we see happening, which has been great. But at the same time, we've done that now, and today is what we have the result of, whatever that is. But I'm just changing a slight bit of tact really, that going down the road of the AAA is our elitist comp. It's a place for our top pilots to race and become better at what they do, rather than it being a place for state of origin pilots, people who step up from the state of origin type comp, then come up to a AAA. It's quite a big gap, and we have lots of E&Ds flying around and something like that. It's a long way from racing an actual paraglider. So it doesn't really develop those pilots who don't really know. So a bit of change of tactic, keep the AAAs for high-end pilots and those that are keen on what to really eventually become a top racing pilot. But then we also need to nurture the newer pilots coming into the sport. So
Canungra's good for that at the moment because it has more opportunity and retrieve, which is important for.
And would we consider
class
running
pilots.
Canungra as a top sports class?
We can do both.
Are we running Canungra?
Okay, so Canungra is an option for the newer pilots at the moment because as a tree, a lot of the top pilots don't go because it's not AAA, so there's more space, right? Dave and the guys that are organising Go for Gold are talking sports class on sometime. But really, if someone just goes, yes, I'm organising it, then that's right.
Two things I want to say. My intro into the comp racing was in Slovenia in a sports class limit, and they had 3 or 4 basically top world pilots coming and flying there, not part of the comp. They had ribbons flying behind them, so they were clearly identified. You didn't need to know the pilot in the air, so you could see what they were doing and watch them. And then each night, one of them would have a bit of a discussion and talk about it. And it was just an absolutely brilliant format for encouraging pilots.
And the Americans, same thing, they give a lot of talk about how to fly their strategy. So it's a lot more empty.
That's something we have tried in AAAs as well. You know, we've tried mentoring, we've had talks and so on, which has been great, but it's difficult to get top pilots to spend their time when they're spending the week trying to achieve something else. And so on. So we created a different platform altogether. Then
From an organisation point of view, Martin and Dave, when you talk about the AAA competitions, is it viable to reduce the numbers you have in a competition to have it as the top pilots? Not opening it for 100,
for sure, to a certain extent.
to a 50 or 60, whatever number it is.
Well, I did. I reduced Corion to 80 this year.
You have to have a pathway to get people in there, but like
You have to have a
reducing
pathway,
that
yeah.
number and not letting people get it just cuts it all off at the knees because it's just the people that are already in there maintaining their position and then they're already the points and staying in the thing and you have that people.
Also, it's only something that's got a curious already, kind of numbers and stuff.
Correct.
Well, that's why running financially, because you do want to make money. That's the idea of running it, because we're not everybody is able to spend time and not get paid for their time and stuff like that. We all do it. Well, most pilots here have done it, but competition's a bit different, I think. So I was just wondering, is there a magic number that you need to financially afford to do a competition?
Having organised hang gliding comps and scoring hang gliding comps, and as we know, hang gliding is in decline. Been interested in watching the numbers of that, and things have had to be trimmed. So we've been down to 30 hang glider pilots, hang glider comps with only 30 people in it, and we've just had to trim things out. A lot of people think that some things like t-shirts are a major expense. They're not. It's other things. Wages.
Yeah, most businesses it's wages.
Getting people to actually help organise and get paid to do what they do.
But the other thing is, the other thing is WPRS points. I think you need 80 so that you're able to get full validity.
More is better. At least an 80 you really start coming down.
Yeah, so you need a minimum of like 80.
And at the moment, we don't have those alternate nurturing comps for people to get the taste of that anyway.
I mean, Queensland sort of does a pretty good job running his safe line. That was a weather problem. But Matt's organising the comps that's available. Wally's running something here on Tuesday. So I mean, all we need to do is get your comp as a C-class comp, and then those people turn up on the ladder.
If you invite them, they will come.
And comps committee will approve anything as a C-class comp, essentially. So we can get it on the ladder. New South Wales is our biggest problem, right? There's a little bit of task running around Wacky, not so much this year again because weather impacted, but nobody is running a consistent comp near Sydney, which would draw in pilots to get that score.
Yeah, when we back to back was running, they just had no weather.
Yeah, it was awful weather. Like I was keen. Yeah, I mean I've run it three years. I think in the last 6.
Yeah.
And we tried to run it last year when we got half the task in the entire season.
Yeah, just shut down.
Dan, I've just got a question. So we heard about the series and about pilots who might be interested in the C-class, but just to gauge the interest, who in this room would be interested in a purely C-class competition along the SRS line if it was held in Australia? Can we just get an idea? So pretty much everybody.
I think that's probably a good question to put on the forum to catch up all the.
I think everybody in this room is interested, so I think there's an appetite for it.
You know, this is the most interesting room.
Not
This is the pilots that actually came to comp and then turned up to talk about it.
Yeah, but there's so many C-class pilots and B-class pilots who are intimidated to come to the meeting, I was thinking, right? So I think they, just going forward, I think there's a huge interest in the C-class competition. If you look at the numbers of jobs, they're just competitions in Europe. And I'm interested to see where it's going as well with these new two-liners coming as well. Not that automatically means they're going to be amazing in performance, but I don't think they'll be a game changer. So it will, there's certainly an encouragement and motivation to sell it. Sell it
And talking about it, how developing comps like we're talking about, this is particularly money put aside in the budget to support that kind of events.
Well, that's where some of the
So
funding.
it should be easier to run it.
Some of the funding could be there
Yeah, there are
supporting
funding
the
put aside
entry
for
fee,
that.
so you could drop the entry fee for some of those competitions for pilots.
And
Subsidise.
And the entry fees the problem.
Subside.
The entry fee is not an issue.
Entry fees not a problem. You have to take a week off and stuff like that, and really the real problem is actually seeing the organiser.
Yeah.
Organise it.
Any other questions?
Then we conclude the meeting.
So is that it now that we have a new comps committee?
Yes.
Going forward? Well, Max, having done it for the last 2 years, it hasn't been an easy job. And Adam, of course, he's not here, but maybe he'll be back one day. And anyone has any other questions at any time about company stuff, come to the comps committee or senior members of competitions and ask for one.
What's coming up with top calendar in the next 6 months? Is there another Wings Out West, or is there
No, doesn't seem to be.
So little State of Origin's the next one in April, is that it?
Yeah, State of Origin in April, and then possibly go for gold in October, November, and probably yep, we're pretty good for that.
October, November.
Yeah.
The date's locked in yet, or?
No, with everyone's timetables. We're pretty definite on a repeat of last year, so successful for the pilots.
Jeff has two questions.
Two related questions. One is about the next team selection period. Obviously, we had controversy about how and why we ended it last time. We don't need to sort it out now, but we need to sort out what we're doing for the next team selection period before it gets to the point in the selection where everyone's just voting on their self-interest. We need to vote about a set of rules what we think will produce the best team. And if we want to make changes, that's a strategy we want to suggest, a lot of people have changes, then we need to make them now. On that, I have one set of change we need to make. The current rules historically limit the number of tasks you can count in your, and it's a leftover from when we used rounds. You have 10 rounds or 12 rounds that go into your scoring. Limits the number of rounds you can count in your team selection to 4.
From any comp, from any single
On
comp.
any single comp. It's not, but we do a quality thing, so it shouldn't be 4. It should either be 4,000 points of quality, or we should scrap it all together. And then we don't need to decide that now, but that has to change because it's completely incompatible with the way we're doing the ladders on validity at the moment. So that's just
So
something.
how can a rule like that be changed in terms of a pilot meeting or a board of people? So a comms committee decision.
Yeah, that one is a limited interest. It's really only about the next selection in the next 2 years. So it's probably only 50 pilots who care. Max is really only 10, but it's maybe we could whatever 20 to 50 pilots to contribute to that, and that goes to the comms. I guess the comms committee will put it out there. This is what we propose as a rule change. Yes or no, or it's contested and maybe we have a meeting. Right? But I don't think it's going to be highly contested. It's just.
I mean, the answer is propose a change.
Yeah.
And then the comms committee is going to develop a change management process.
And we've got 3 months or thereabouts to do that because I think the next Worlds are 2 years and 3 months away. 2 years.
2 years, 5 months. So the other thing is that we might want to completely change our process if we're going to put it into that. And then you should suggest how we're going to completely change our process and what it will be in future. If you think that should.
What was the idea of limiting the amount of tasks?
So you couldn't get into the team on the basis of just one competition.
Yeah, so you had to actually attend some other AAAs.
And do well in more than one.
Yeah.
Yep, that was the original idea of it. Maybe that's not relevant anymore.
The reality of the level where they're competing to get the team, you do have to go and buy PWCs to get scores.
Right now,
Yeah, it was all about other AAAs, right? So the idea was to have top pilots attend AAAs and share their.
Anyway, the minimalist change would be changing to 4,000 points of validity, but maybe there's somebody who has a better system, completely better team selection system they want to put out there. regionals first. Just get there for a bit.
Well, there's obvious other candidates. One is many countries just have the coach pick the team. For example, French and the Polish and like big teams, not little teams.
They pay the coach though.
Yeah, they do pay the coach. There's something to do with the 20 grand. Or the British do top 2 WPRS and then in
National
order.
champ.
No, top 2 WPRS and then in order of your best comp score on WPRS.
Something like that. Some do similar hybrid schemes where if you win the national championship, you're in, and you're 2 WPRS, 2 WPRS, and things like that. So, the downside of going with WPRS is you get more WPRS from Eurocomps. Like every time I go, I get 55, 60 instead of 40 here, because they're overvalued, because the system is a feedback system in Eurocomps. So if you're prepared to spend money and go to lots of Eurocomps, you'll get a good WPRS.
So therefore, someone who's financially advantageous,
the advantage of scoring on our ones is us against us. Yeah, and you can see how you've done against us. I do a different ranking, a totally different ranking based on a Bayesian thing, and that's. I mean, I think that's a better scheme, but it's not just about attention. But that's how all of the big, online competition things now are all scored using Bayesian scoring systems because they give a better reflection of
better prediction.
Better prediction of the outcome.
Yep. So historically, why are the Australian comps low score on the PRS? Because of high quality, or is it just that's how it's always been?
It's because we're an island.
Yeah, because we don't get the feedback. So the Euros go to a whole bunch of comps. The top guys go to a whole bunch of comps. That makes that comp worth more. Because that comp's worth more people go. Then next year, historically, it was worth more, so more people go, and it gets this feedback loop. At some stage, I was super keen to try and get it changed, but I just realised that the FAI doesn't give a shit because it's all controlled by the Euros, so they don't want to change it. But I did a simulation of, at 10 years out, it's still impacting. By 10 years out, it still has a significant impact when it shouldn't. Like all of the results from 10 years ago should decay to nothing, but the results feed back on themselves, and the comps are worth more as a result of the comps being worth more previously. So your score is up, but you go back to the same comp, the score of that next comp is up. So your score is up again, so the next year your score is up again. So that comp always propagates a higher score. So the Swiss and the French and all those Central European comps are over. If you go there, you'll get a really good score.
We've got pilots who are scoring quite well now overseas and bringing back good points.
Yeah, but we're screwed by COVID.
Why aren't we able to?
No, we're screwed by COVID.
A few years ago, crowd just went over. I think Australia jumped from 30 up to 8 on nation, and then over the next 2 years we just spiraled ourselves back down. We've got feedback that Jens talked about. Is it affects us for a couple of years, and then
we're consistent. We went before COVID. Like a group of people went before COVID, did really well overseas, brought that back. Our next year's comps were worth quite a bit, like reasonable amounts. And then we had no overseas people for a couple of years, and we didn't go overseas. And also people didn't go to comps because they couldn't, and it's graded down to last year when a lot of people went overseas again. So the only way we can do it is have lots of people go overseas.
Yeah. But we'll bolster too when we had, Yuli and the Finnish guys out here improves their thing. So when you've got 80 pilots, pilot quality is super high, then we win. But when your pilot quality really drops away because your top 10 have got good pilot quality, then the rest are all over against.
And top pilots just go, that comes over 40 last year.
So the FII takes the level of our competition, the 450 score.
No, that's just us. The WPRS ranking is calculated on the pilot quality and the pilot number, and it's a kind of complicated formula. But essentially...
But ours doesn't change. The 450 doesn't change. Always 450.
No, that's on our level. WPRS points that you get for your winning the comp changes every year based on the pilot quality of the pilots in the comp and the number of pilots in the comp.
You're talking about a task score for our ladder, that's different,
totally separate,
isolated thing. We could make that 500, we could make it 100, we could make it 1,000, we could make it 10,000.
Like it's worth 450 because Henry's did it 25 years ago or something, and I'm like, can we change that? They're like, no, we like it. Okay.
When they first changed the system, I was running Penumbra. I tried to, Jimmy really highlighted the bullshit thing of the system. So sort of created 2 Cat 2 comps within 1 week, and had the first 4 days weekend was one comp, and then the next, the others are trying to say, well, you get double for the same week. There's a bit of a blow up, doesn't like that. I said, well, this is just online system. You've got to, you know, basically in the southern hemisphere, you're just going to be down tomorrow, just back ahead.
Another question I've got about, Jeff, you've probably heard this over many years, and especially for me, is our scores, kicking and goal, are so hugely separated. You've got 300 up to 1,000. Yep, people getting a goal.
It's because we are.
That means there's a massive separation. If pilots are getting a goal a little bit later, they've got like a 400 point, or I say a 300 point disadvantage. For them to catch that top person now, they've got to gain 300 points. Is there a way of compressing? Is the gap system better? I've done how this work. Is there a way of compressing the scores down? Because you go to PwCs or the Worlds, and you've got 90 people getting a goal, and their points are not that far different.
Okay, so the reason that happened is because they all occur within 10 minutes. They all get to goal in a short time after the leader. We get to goal 2-3 hours after the leader, right? We've already changed our curve, so it's still the same steepness as normal gap, but then it's much flatter, so we go much further out in time points. So there's some separation between the sports class riders.
So we have 200 leader points, and that makes it even more.
They're running 150. That's not super different. The rest of the world's running 150.
My response to that is pilots shouldn't be focused on the points. You're racing other pilots who you're comparable
Yeah,
with.
but to win that competition, the points do matter. The actual numbers do matter if you want to win that competition. If you're only 2 or 3 cycling, is seconds apart, microseconds apart. But paragliding, we're 200 points apart, 300 points apart.
No, if you turn up you look at the league gaggle every week, everyone who turns up in the league gaggle is within 30 points of each other. The reality is that big comps, where you see everyone that's tight for score compression, they're all really good pilots and they turn up really close together. Like really close together. Like everyone's piling into goal within 5 or 10 minutes of the leader. And so the time points don't decay much. That's where the big decay is. It's in the time points, you're all getting the same distance points. We have a much bigger time spread. And in the last year or two, probably maybe the last few years.
Well, this year, probably the most impressive I've seen.
Yeah, because we've got more pilots racing on the top gliders and racing well and turning up in a small space of time. Like they are, like certainly the lead gaggle very close every day this week. But even the second gaggle isn't so far back that we're out of the competition as a result of that. But if you look at, say, what the Swiss have switched to time-based scoring. It's just your total time across the week, and there's lots of little weirdness to deal with nominating goal and stuff like that. And it ends up not really being different to gap.
Exactly.
But if you're 20 minutes behind on my task, you're going for the win, right? That's the same as being 300 points down.
Yeah, TV's there to cope with that stuff.
But if you're competing in the AAA competitions and going to do PwCs, don't you be racing in the same type of competition? Or do you have to change gears when you go to PwC? Or change your
It's not so
way of
different.
thinking?
It's not so
Not that much different.
just a full bar, stick with the lead.
I mean, the thing is, again, everybody finishes together, so the scores are all the same. Right? And the reason the scores are all the same is because 100 people come within 2 minutes. Yeah.
Can we move this out so to continue? Because I put it to 11.
Yeah.
It's pretty space like that.
I think there's another meeting happening maybe in a minute, but at 1 o'clock at the pub at the Bright Brewery, a AGM for the Planet and Cone Club. If anyone wants just a bite to eat or something, we'll just start the numbers. It's really good.